Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome this man. He's the one and only Gordon Lightfoot. Thank you so much for making the time to do this.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I want to kind of go back. What was life like growing up?
I tell you, that that requires a lot of thought. It was normal. Got into music early. Grew up in a really small town. There was music there. There was sports. There was a couple of movie theaters. There was an opera house, a little small concert type of opera house there. See about 600 or 700 people, and I remember I played in a talent contest there when I was about 5 years old. There on, it was a normal family, encouraged by parents, parental encouragement, parental input. Sometimes they got a little short, sometimes a little impatient with me. But after a while, they found out that I was serious about it, serious about things. I always wanted to be a performer, and I always wanted to be a singer, and as far back as I can remember. I went to high school. Through high school, I went to a music school in Los Angeles when I was 19 years of age. During my high school years, I played in operettas. I played in had two different barbershop quartets that I was a part of. Later on in high school, I sang and played drums in a dance band, which turned into a great little jazz gig for me at one point in my early 20s. But of course, I didn't go in that direction. We had sports. I joined the football team in grade 9, and I'm not a big person. I am not a big person, but I joined the football team in grade 9. Immediately was lassoed into a barbershop quartet called the Collegiate Four, is what we called ourselves, and we sang in competition with some of the other adult quartets, Society for the Preservation and Encouragement of Barber Quartet Singing in America.
Interesting.
That's the SBEBSQSA. I hope you got that all.
I did. Now, tell us, all the listeners out there, about the first time that you wrote a song.
Yeah, okay, I was in grade 12, and I wrote a topical song.
A topical song?
Yeah, I wrote a topical song. I don't know why I did that. I saw something on the cover of the old Life. Remember Life magazine? When it hasn't been published for a long time, but there was a great magazine back around the time called Life magazine.
Yeah.
You know, the forerunner of Time and Newsweek and all the other good news magazines that we have now. Maclean's magazine up here. They had a picture of a whole bunch of a large group of people, about it must have been about 80 or 90 people in the parking lot, in a vacant lot in New York City. A lot that was being prepared for some kind of a building, but it was leveled right off, and it was just a vacant lot. And everybody in there, they were all spread out, and everybody had a hula hoop around their waist, and they were all doing the hula hoop all at once. And the picture appeared on the front page cover of Life magazine because it was the time that the hula hoop came into vogue. Everybody was doing it. The kids started doing it. It was like many of the other fads that we've seen through all the years. Was the hula hoop. I decided that I would try and write a song about this hula hoop fad. I mean, people have asked me if I would play the hula hoop song sometime, but they'd have to waterboard me first before I do it. Okay, well, I have done it though. I've recited it. I have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've done it. It's when I took it to a publisher. I was so serious about it that I had just started driving, and my father lent me his car to drive all the way down to Toronto, and I was in this little tiny town about 80 miles north of Toronto, and I found out about that there was a publishing outlet in Toronto from a friend in high school. And I borrowed my dad. I asked my dad if he'd lend me the car, and he lent it to me. And I went down there, and I played the song for the guy for them. I went right to the office. I went right to the BMI Canada. You heard of BMI, the Performance Rights Society?
Yeah, of course.
You know, ASCAP, BMI. I went right to the BMI and played the song right for the guy at his desk playing on my guitar. he said, leave your name with our receptionist, and we'll call you.
Famous last words, right?
So he told me to keep on working, and I did, and I submitted more songs, and after a while they started to realize that I was more than just a hula hooper, and there was more. It went a little deeper than that. But he was impressed by the fact that I had written a topical song. But he said most of the songs that we get in here are about, love and romance and unrequited relationships and all that kind of
right
stuff. And to see somebody wrote a topical song, he encouraged me. He said, keep writing. He said, don't stop. And if you get any more songs, send them in. And I did. And eventually I had to leave that situation and move on, because I actually moved on and had to actually buy myself out of my first contract, which was when I was about 24 years of age. And I was already married at that time and had 2 children. So you can understand that it was not all it wasn't all that simple.
No.
But I just persevered, and I tried real hard, and I kept writing, and the writing kept getting better, and I got a chance to be on a show over in Britain for a summer replacement series, and they did 7 shows, BBC, over in London, and got married, and married a Swedish girl. I married a girl from Stockholm, Sweden. I quit my job as a singer and dancer on a television series to follow her back to Stockholm and marry her in 1963. It's quite a tale. I have my third unauthorized biography has just been released up here. It's called Letters to Gordon.
Oh, yeah? Have you read it?
Well, what really troubles me is that it got a terrific review here in the Globe and Mail newspaper. But you know what it is, really? It's a rehash of the other 2 unauthorized biographies.
Oh, I see.
Because there are 3 of them, and they every time somebody does an authorized biography, they just look back at the other 2 unauthorized biographies to get their information. So it's pretty good. In the review, they say it's a good read.
Because it's collective.
So I may get around to reading it one of these days. I don't know who the fellow is that wrote it. I don't know who he is. But
I've read before that you said that your experiences in choir is what taught you to sing expressively.
Yeah, absolutely. The story absolutely unto itself. Between the ages of 11, 12, and 13, I had a really good, solid, strong vocal as a boy soprano. And they picked me out of the choir here at the church, or the choir that I was singing in, the junior choir. The choir leader pulled me out of the choir and tried to. Didn't say try. He started to train me. Asked my mother if she was interested in having me trained, and she said yes, and I said yes, and mother already had me doing some piano lessons. I mean, my mom. I mean, I call her my mother through respect. I mean, really, she was a wonderful person. She encouraged me a great deal, and so did my father. But they already had me taking piano lessons, so they said, "Fine, let's do the training." So the next thing I knew, I was singing in competition in the Kiwanis festivals, and I did very well there. I did really, really good over the next 3 years. I repeated or sang in quite a few classes. Did very well. While I was doing that, and the guy who was teaching me to sing taught me to sing with emotion. By the time I was about 12 years old, he taught me how to sing with emotion, and I'll tell you how he did that. He got me doing things from Handel's Messiah, the great choral work or orchestra work, Handel's Messiah.
Yeah,
is what it's called. He had me doing material from there, other than the stuff I was using for competition. He had me also at the same time working on Handel's Messiah, sections of Handel's Messiah, which actually taught me by osmosis how to sing with emotion, just through osmosis. I just picked up on it just by doing those kind of songs.
When you started to get into the craft of songwriting, what songwriters influenced you the most?
Okay, there was Steve Goodman, there was Bob Gibson, There was Pete Seeger. There was Joni Mitchell. There was Hank Snow. There was Wilf Carter. And there was Bob Dylan.
I have read where Bob Dylan has said many times that you're one of the greatest songwriters. So today, when you think of the people that are still writing songs, who do you think is the greatest?
Well, he's the I would have to give all the kudos to him. He is a remarkable songwriter. He's kind of gotten lost a little bit in the flood in recent years, but he's a wonderful songwriter. He's on the same par as the Beatles are. He's on exactly the same par as the Beatles. Bob Dylan, Beatles. They're about equal.
What do you think about Stephen Foster?
Well, I used to take him in grade 8 in public school. We sang certain songs by Stephen Foster that were very, very nice, and a lot of those melodies hung with me, and some of those feelings and ambiances and shadings and the wonderful melodies that he used and the simplicity. And I applied it in a couple of my songs, and I wrote about it. I had a song called Your Love's Return, which really showed everything I ever had learned by doing Stephen Foster songs.
What would you say is the greatest well of inspiration for your songwriting?
Well, excuse me. I don't know. I think I started looking inside myself very, very early for ways and means. I want to write songs. I wrote my first song in grade 12, but I really wanted to do it before that. I really felt like I could, and there never was a reason until I saw that silly article, you know. It was on the cover of Life magazine, and it was just a light article that they were doing that week. Golly, I remember a time between the Second World War and the Korean War where there was hardly any news at all for about 5 years. From the end of the Second World War until the Korean War started, there was a real blank spot, and I was doing current events too in grade 8, grade 7, and 8. We were doing current events reports, you know, and there was nothing in the newspaper, and there was no television, you know. There was radio. I mean, maybe one of these days, if I'm lucky, I'll get with the 21st century. I don't even have a cell phone.
No? Well, that's a blessing, probably. You know, the cell phone, it rings all the time. People bother you. It doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
Well, I've got people around me who have cell phones, so if I need to make a call, I can always borrow somebody's cell phone, but that's not very often. I'm better organized than that. I'm organized to the point where I hardly ever have to go near a cell phone. And I move around a lot. I really do. I spend a lot. I'm very active, always on the go.
You have this tour coming up, and the first date is in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes.
Do you ever get tired of being on the road?
No, never. That would be awful. It would be an awful thing to do if it made me tired. Well, I mean, sometimes you might get a little bit tired, but I mean, I love the work. I mean, I'm always primed. I'm always ready to go. I'm always prepared. And we know what we're going to do, and we're confident. I have a wonderful group of musicians backing me up. I mean, it's just, it's fun. It's wonderful. The people seem to love it, and I love performing, and I like to sing from the heart. I like to sing my heart out to make it quite, put it quite clearly.
Well, speaking of someone singing their heart out, there have been some very, very soulful and meaningful versions of your songs. You've recorded your songs, but other people have recorded your songs. People like Elvis Presley, the group Peter, Paul, and Mary, Marty Robbins. I love the version that Harry Belafonte did of, I think he did Early Morning Rain. What song that you wrote that was recorded by somebody else would you say was the best interpretation of one of your songs?
Oh, my goodness. I'd almost have to dig so deep with that, I'd have to find somebody that wasn't all that well known. Just for an example, I can give you a couple of examples. Murray McLaughlin, Home from the Forest. Jesse Winchester, Sundown. This is not going that deep. Barbra Streisand, If You Could Read My Mind.
Yeah.
Peter, Paul, and Mary, Early Morning Rain. There's a lot of them, really. There are actually probably about two or three pages of covers here. I was very lucky at the beginning, that I was actually discovered. I was really discovered. I was lucky to be discovered up here in Canada and have it be able to and be accepted by the industry over in the United States. And it was very much because of the interest that Peter, Paul, and Mary took in my work that really opened the doors up for me down there. It got me involved with the creative management situation, and the manager had a great publisher that he worked with, M. Whitmark and Sons, and it was run by a guy named Artie Arthur Mogul. And boy, I tell you, for about the first 5 years, I had 5 albums in my first 5 years under that deal, which started about 1965, and I think that Artie Mogul got me about 150 cover recordings.
Wow.
He was one of the best song pluggers in the States, in anywhere.
That's incredible.
He got 50 cover recordings in Early Morning Rain. I mean, it's amazing. I was very lucky to get involved with some people. Ian and Sylvia, I don't know if you remember them or not. They were one of the really well-known folk duos. They were a husband and wife team, Canadians. Discovered me, came to see me in a bar, playing in a bar.
They were the first to record Early Morning Rain, isn't that right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I thought so. This is impossible for most songwriters. The thing I constantly hear is songwriters say that's like choosing between your children. Could you pick a favorite song of yours?
I think that If You Could Read My Mind is my favorite.
That song is just an incredible song. And on that note, do you find heartbreak is a greater inspiration than something that is joyous?
Having experienced the roller coaster ride that we encounter, in living, it can go one way or the other. I don't prefer to write sad songs, and I don't always write sad songs, but they're kind of serious. I try to balance it up though, keep things optimistic in my songwriting, and if I want to let it feel a little bit sad about something, I'll write it down. I did that. If You Could Read My Mind was really I was going through my first divorce when I wrote that song, so perhaps some of it rubbed off into the songwriting. Certainly it would, but there's lots of happy stuff too. The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald is not a particularly happy song either. It's the story that is and the sound. It's a folk song. It's a real folk song.
When you were writing The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, how much of it, I know that the story is true, but are all of the the facts, I guess what I'm asking is how much artistic license did you take with that song?
Okay, well the whole thing is accurate with the exception of verse 4 where I allowed myself some conjecture.
I see.
But the part about the hatch covers caused some problems, which only emerged just recently, just in the last 3 or 4 years. So when what was the reason, or what reason was there for the hatch covers to have broken? And then of course it came around to, well, I wonder who didn't close the hatch cover, rolled around, and all that sort of question. In the meantime, I was in touch with our ladies committee in Madison, Wisconsin, whom I clear everything with anyway before we do anything at all. Ruth Hudson, Janice Armagost, Cheryl Rosman, and Dolores McSorley, the captain's daughter. Those 4. to check if anybody wants to do anything with the song or if there's a problem. But it did come up about the hatch covers. Why? How did I draw the conclusion that that was what took place? So, dive detectives. National Geographic did a special on it here about 2 years ago, and they proved. They brought it to my office. They played it for me. The guy got a laptop off, and he put it on my desk, and he played it for me. And he proved. He said, "I'll prove to you that wasn't what happened." And what they did is they proved that the ship actually broke in half.
Oh, interesting.
It's called Dive Detectives.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I changed the line, and from that point on, ever since, the part about the hatch covers is gone, and I replaced it with a different line.
Interesting. So it's still accurate.
It is, and what could have happened? The line now reads, the ship did sink sometime. I mean, the rest of it's all chronologically correct.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all the other 6 verses or eight verses, whatever it is. The 4th verse is the only one where I allowed any conjecture, and at the same time borrowed a line from Woody Guthrie, all at one fell swoop. But then had to go back and rewrite that one line because the ladies' committee in Madison wanted me to do that, so I did that.
Well, what about writing Early Morning Rain? What was the inspiration behind that song?
Well, I was thinking about going to school out in California when I was about 19 to take the arranging course at Westlake College, and thinking about the LA airport and the way it was back in those old days around about 1959, and I was at the same time babysitting my 6-month-old, my 3-month-old son in my study while my wife was out shopping. And all of a sudden, I sat down to write a song, and I wrote that song in probably one afternoon. So I don't know how it happened, but 2 or 3 hours babysitting my newly born little son, Fred. He's now my eldest boy. Went to school, graduated from university.
The man who's engineering this session is also a musician. His name's Jeff Pike, and he has performed many, many times in his career the song Carefree Highway. So I wanted to know, and he wanted to know, what was the inspiration behind that song?
Well, apart from what it says about the soul and about wanting to be free and sort of on the move, free and on the move, so to speak. I got it from a road sign between Tucson and Phoenix. One night while driving from was it Tucson or was it? I forget which city it was, but I was heading for Phoenix anyways, and a sign came up and said Carefree Highway. You know, one of those large highway signs on the said, which of course was the sign off to Carefree, Arizona. He got me stuck. Now I'm trying to think of the name of the city we were leaving because people would know which where that sign was. I've had lots of people come up to me and say they've been driving out there and they've seen the road sign there, Carefree Highway.
I wanted to also ask about the line in Sundown. What does it mean when you say, "If I find you've been creeping round my back stairs"?
That means if he's been cutting into my rhubarb. That's what it means. Has he been rubbing the other man's rhubarb, as Jack Nicholson said in...
Oh, I see.
Somebody's been rubbing the other man's rhubarb.
And that song is kind of about like a heartbreak situation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about a situation that bothered me a great deal at the time too, because I was in a kind of a relationship where there was not full trust. And at the time that I wrote the song, the person I was supposed to be trusting was was out partying while I wrote that song. It was that very night. I mean, a lot of these songs I've written right in the middle of the experience, and I've done it more than once too. I did it as recently as the album I just wrote, the Harmony, a little album that I wrote after I did all my records for Warner Brothers, which was 14 albums. I wrote another one independently just for the heck of it, just for fun, and I called it Harmony. But it's got all songs in there that direct to my second divorce, which just went through.
Harmony came out in 2004, and I was wondering, are you still writing songs, and are there any plans for maybe another album?
They're in my head. I have songs in my mind. I have songs in my head. I wish I had the time to do it. There's lots and lots of family obligation, and boy, I want to keep up the tour because that's the most fun of all, is doing what we're going to be doing there in Atlanta. I mean, first show of a tour,
so
13 shows, 15 days. First one's Atlanta. It's always fresh, too. We will have not played for 5 weeks. We'll have not played for 5 weeks when we walk out on that stage in front of an audience. We've had one rehearsal. We had a rehearsal just this past Friday.
You're going to be performing here in Atlanta, and so it sounds like you prefer performing over anything else. Is that true?
Yes, I do. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's always been that way. It always has been that way. Since I stood up on my grandma's kitchen table and sang for my aunts and uncles.
When it comes to music, would you say you're more attracted to the lyrics or the melody in a song?
I like both. I like a great marriage between the lyric and the melody. The marriage between the lyric and the melody. A nice chord progression, nice message, and the kind of material that I can sink my teeth into.
What do you hope the listener gets out of the experience of your music?
They should feel, if they don't feel uplifted, I hope they will feel uplifted. What
is the best thing about being Gordon Lightfoot?
Now that is a very, very difficult question to answer. I'll have to. What's it like to be me? It's normal as I can make it. It's as normal as I can make it, and I do all the same things as everybody else does. I got family. I got kids. I got responsibilities. I love my children. I watch the news. I'm concerned about the world. I can stop and talk to lots of people on the street.
Oh yeah,
that's one of the things. Yeah, I do. I've spent a lot of time down in the downtown core of the city. You know, this is about 4 or 5 million people in Toronto here. It's the largest city in Canada. And I go right downtown to go to my gym classes because I work out all the time because it keeps me in shape to get out and do the shows. And when I'm doing that, I run into lots of people down around the hotel and down in the business area and down where the department stores are. I mean, my own daughter was just down the street here recently at the what do they call it? What's the sit-in again? The Occupy Toronto.
Oh yeah, the Occupy. Yeah.
Yeah, my little daughter and I got her picture on the front page of the Toronto Globe and Mail here, the newspaper. I went down to visit her one day at the Occupy because she was in there right from the very first day. My youngest daughter. She's out of it now. She decided she's not going to stay, but she hung in there for about 3 months. She went down to New York and she went to the sit-in there. She went down to Ground Zero, where they're putting up the new building down there. Went and checked out the crowd, the Wall Street crowd there, where they had the Occupy Wall Street going on. So occasionally I could even drop over there and visit her. And if I'm not doing that, you know, I'm around the city halls down there, and there's lots of people walking around, and I stop and talk to people all the time down there. I just stand on the street. I stand down in the concourses. I go to the gym. And I meet people, and I just stand and talk to them. And I like it. I really enjoy it. People recognize me. They want to talk to me. I stop and talk to them.
I have one more question for our special guest, Mr. Gordon Lightfoot, who's going to be here for the first tour date of this stretch. We have listeners not just in Atlanta, but in a lot of different places. So my last question for you, Mr. Lightfoot, what would you like to say to all the people who are listening?
I can think of 100 things. Stay motivated, everybody. Stay motivated.
All right. Well, Mr. Lightfoot, it's been a great pleasure. I thank you very much for this interview. It's been very interesting.
Thanks, Paul.
Have a good night.
Thank you.